Now, can you hear me? Yes. What I'd like to speak of now, fairly shortly, is what we can do in the longer run. Longer run, feedback. Upbringing. This is key, I think. The child needs the love of both parents and love within the family circle. This is very prominent, actually, in Islam. When I go to Gaza, I love being with families because they are very close together, contrary to some of the propaganda which is constantly being squirted out from our state broadcasting corporation. I was fortunate to have been the eldest of 4 and to have had a mother who loved babies. I like talking about this, but men never do they? I saw her breastfeeding my baby brothers, Michael and Peter, and caring for them in all ways. I think all those things, like she used to knit, like all mothers used to knit, all lots of little dainty garments with lacy edges. And I think my love of babies and the tenderness I feel for most people derives from that. Not all people, I will readily admit. These defects in upbringing are changing, I know that. The male role in caring for the child and cherishing it is vital for the little one, and to enhance the tender feelings in the father too. The stereotype was instead a father who had little embrace of the infant and who was himself packed off to a prep boarding school at 7 for the wealthier families. Later he would go to public school, which I think John Pilger has said are schools for killers, officer-class killers. Does university enhance humanity in an individual? I don't know, actually. I think that clever dicks might be cold fish. Education, another very important fact. I think our education is absolutely dismal in these things that we're talking about. History is biased, often grossly, and I doubt the human elements like suffering and loss come across when they're talking about war. I don't know. Civics, or whatever you might call it, are human rights taught in depth. Interestingly, in Palestine, the United Nations, the UNRWA schools, teach human rights. It's a very important thing there. Are the laws of warfare, even the essence of what Chris has been speaking about, taught? Or talking of peace? Now the milieu, what we grow up in, and this is the memetics bit amongst other things I've been speaking of, shallow celebrity and shows of aggressiveness diminish the value of the individual. The poor, the pigmented, the far away are of naught. Dispensable. 27 persons, including militants, were killed Wednesday in Lashkargah by an airstrike. Gone. And there isn't a thought in this population about the people who've died and who they were, who was married to who, how many children there were, as Chris has been saying. But that's what it's like. You hear it every few days. Now, the spectrum of sensitivity and conscientiousness of people who want to do good as against those who relish evil or who will be complicit with it. It was, I was on a march in autumn 2002, marching against the Gulf War. I think it was against the Gulf War then. Before the US and the UK, courtesy of Mr. Blair, laid upon Iraq like wolves, to quote Galloway. We were swinging down Haymarket. A middle-aged male with green blazer and polished shoes and a woman on his arm. If it was left to me, I would nuke the lot of them, I heard him say. If it was left to me, I'd nuke the lot of them. Chill and anger ran down me. I broke off and followed the nuker up the pavement. I tapped him on the shoulder. Would you please repeat what you said back there? F off! With hatred in his eyes, for one of thousands who stood against the war. At the other end of the spectrum, that man Wilson, you may remember him, whose nursing sister daughter Marie was blown to pieces in Idaskilin Remembrance Service bombing. He forgave the bombers without reservation, and his radiant goodness was exemplary for all. In between, many shades of sensitivity and conscientiousness. But there are masses of people who want to work, obviously, worry about their mortgage, and particularly now, and so many are wage slaves, and join 80,000 others at a rugby or soccer match, but let someone else react to mass murder abroad. It's not to concern them. So the clowns and circuses are very important for this fascist government. So celebrity come dancing involves 20 million people, supposing, looking at it, and the Olympics are all. What to do now? The media is absolutely central, and it has to be changed. I can't see it happening easily because they have it by the throat, the people who control it, or sidelined, like, for instance, we're thinking of giving up our TV license when it runs out. The BBC is a major servant of government and thus for war, and you probably know that before the Iraq War it was calculated that they only gave 3% of broadcasting time over to people who opposed the war. And they gave endless time to Mrs. Pearl, Edelman, Wolfowitz, all sorts of Ziocons and others who came over here telling us how important it was to have the war. We must inform ourselves. We must root out evil politicians and embrace the good. I'm getting more impressed with my MP. He's been very helpful about the ramming of our boat. Not that the FCO have been helpful. A good example is locally. I wish Mr. Steen was here because I like speaking about people directly to them. But I remember at a meeting in the Great Hall, he was asked why the Tory party voted for the Iraq War. And he said, well, the Labour were good to us when we went into the Falklands. So in other words, that if you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours, and we'll have a war over it. That's what we call logic, and in fact it makes Chris's point completely. Direct, non-violent action. Now there's a certain hypocrisy in me here, because I would find it hard to do it. I'm a very law-abiding citizen, but that, I think it's very important indeed. And the three instances I'll give you. One was a recent one. Some very excellent people in Brighton have been doing their best to prevent the manufacture of bomb release mechanisms by EDO. It's an American-owned firm, I think, and these are installed in F-16s and other planes, but they certainly go to Israel, and they're used to release missiles and bombs. They're not meant to go to Israel. There's in fact meant to be a ban on all such weapons systems going to Israel. But as always, our government is very good at turning a blind eye to these things, although it signs these various agreements. In the first half of last year, we sold 28 million quid's worth of stuff to Israel. And from knowing how I know how they behave, They shouldn't, in fact, have a match. The B-52 bomber was attacked at Fairford by, I think, 3 people. I'm not sure they're still in the windings of the courts, but the law that they used was that they were committing a small crime to prevent a bigger crime. And by Jove, they were. And finally, Raytheon in Northern Ireland, I think 9 people got in there and disabled their computers. Excellent. The most important thing of all, and I really mean this, is to indict criminal leaders. And I'm going to show you something now. Some next slides. That's right. Sorry about the microphone, the volume changing.